Hello everyone, we are coming to you live today. This is Yonkers Voice with a very important topic. Our guest today is Maria Trusa, who has written a book, you see it here, called Say No More. And today's topic is tragic is probably the wrong word, it's a serious topic. There is a pandemic of sexual abuse. Maria Trusa was born in the Dominican Republic and was a victim of sexual abuse herself at the age of 9. And Maria has vowed to speak out about it, not to contain the pain, and to help others who have also been victims of sexual abuse. Victims no more. Maria, I'll let you explain.
Adriana, thank you for having me here. It is an honor for me. I want to thank Ru, the Yonkers Voice, for continuing to make a difference, because I know that that is what Ru does. He brings topics out that people need to know, and it's the community that is my community. I actually lived in Yonkers for many years, and we just finished doing a march on the 30th of April that I am extremely proud of. And it's a march that was bringing the awareness, which is what I want to do. I have a movement, Yo Digo No Más, I Say No More, that it is bringing the awareness of what I call the silent pandemic of sexual abuse of our children, the powerless, the voiceless. And we have become the voice for the voiceless. In addition to that, the movement is creating education material. We need to educate. We are doing workshops, and eventually, and this is my dream, and I can tell you one thing about me, I dream big. I dream big. So, and I've been able to create amazing things in my life. And one of the big things that I plan to do, and I will before I leave this earth, is creating healing centers for the survivors of sexual abuse when they were children. Because the healing that has to happen is tremendous. We live in a society or in a world where children, millions of them, are abused, and no one talks about it. It is the biggest secret. I can tell you that as a Latina, and I'm going to speak from what I know most, which is my culture, it is the biggest secret of the Latino community, and one that I decided to take on as I decided to break the silence after 47 years.
Let me interrupt you for a second. You made a statement that it is it is in the Latino community. It's the biggest secret in the Latino community. Why is that?
So there are social norms that we have been carrying in through generations. Generation through generation. The norms, I'll give you one of them. Whatever happens in the house stays in the house. It is a secret. We have taught our children to have secrets from the beginning. You have issues, everything gets resolved in the house. The children are treated like they don't have a voice from the beginning. You respect the adults. If an adult speaks, I can tell you from my own experience. You know, we are the voices of the children. There's no validations, there's no feelings that are taken into consideration. It's more of we have had a dictatorship parenting for many, many years. It's changing that dictatorship parenting. But I'm talking I know from my era, it was whatever mom said, I do, whatever dad said, I do.
But this raises the question, how does a child who has been sexually abused speak out, question the action without going against that cultural norm of the dictatorship as you describe it in the house?
So a child doesn't speak out because when the child sees that they're not believed and their feelings are not heard and they don't matter, even if they try to speak out, they're not believed. And they're not believed for many reasons. So a child is not going to understand that these social norms obviously are suppressing them and affecting them. But a child is someone that needs protection from the adult. That is why My goal is to really start changing the social norms, start validating our children. I'm doing workshops with the school district. I did a few workshops in the month of April with parents, educating them how to, number one, identify the red flags, because the red flags are there, but we ignore it. What we say is, this child has become a difficult child. Why? Why is this child out of control? Why? We need to ask the why. We need to be curious, not start blaming the child and going and disconnecting from the child because there are symptoms that they're expressing where they're trying to have a voice. And the norms, the social norms, again, are suppressing that ability.
But many families would say, from the adult point of view, it's a stigma. We just want to sweep it under the rug. It happened. Get over it. That's it. We don't want to deal with it. A child would say, I don't want my mommy to be mad at me. I don't want my daddy to be mad at me. And it's a child basically sees it as a stigma, as a sense of shame, as something that needs to be hidden. So a child internalizes that. Where do they even begin? Where does that 9-year-old Maria Trusa begin to come out of the sexual abuse, and who does she talk to?
That is why the school district, for me, is so important. Bringing trauma-informed systems to the school district, to the police department, to family court system, where we create a place where there is trauma sensitivity. The child, most of the time, is not going to find the strength to break the silence at home, where it is happening, because, by the way, the monster is in the house. There are, in the United States, the statistics that every 9 minutes, a child is sexually assaulted by a family member or someone close to the family. Over 90% of those assaulting and doing this horrific act, they're in the house.
But again, not to belabor the point. Let's say that a child does speak out. There's a possibility that that child may get removed from that home environment that they've grown up in for 9, 10 years, and then sent off to be with a relative, sent off into foster care. So how do you assuage the fears of a child who says, okay, if I do tell, then I'm going to be taken out of my home?
You need professionals. That is why we need to train the school district, the social workers, the teachers, and we need a system that supports these children. And sometimes the child is better off not being at home. I want to tell you that when you steal the innocence of a child, innocence is a God-given right to us. When we go through that process, the innocence is where you become a creator. You imagine the world. You have, everything is good. You smile, you're happy, you enjoy the moments. You are truly in life. Like, you are present to life. You get sexually abused, and I'll tell you about me. So I was 9 years old when my father, my own father, decided to take me in the middle of the night with his friend, who was a witchcraft man. He was taking my little brother that was 4 years old. And I begged my father not to take my little brother. And my father said to me, then you have to go. I didn't want to go. I was screaming and I didn't want to go. I was forced to go, powerless, voiceless. Nothing I said mattered. The lady that was taking care of me, because my mom was in the United States already trying to support us because my father was an alcoholic. So the lady that was taking care of me, even to this day, she's still in my life. I did a documentary, and I saw the interview, her interview, and she said, it was the father. Like, I just let him take her because it was the father. So, and she said, what happened to me was that for a week I didn't eat. I wanted to die. I was left with this man who took me into the place where he would do witchcraft. He forced me to drink a bottle of whiskey. I was 9 years old. I could have died just from the whiskey. And then he proceeded to tell me that what was about to happen to me, I could not tell anyone because I would die and my family would die. The intimidation that was put on me from the beginning. And then you look at your dad, leaves you there. The abandonment issue that created for me, I still deal with it. The impact of a story like this, when you lose your innocence in a trauma like this, and there are millions of children out there, and many of you that are actually watching right now, I know many of you might be triggered by this because it is hard. It is hard for me to tell the story because my body keeps the score. And I know your body keeps the score. And you might be feeling this. But look, without this pain, we're not going to bring change. I don't want to be another statistic. I don't want you to be another statistic. I want us to really make a change and stand up and break the silence, because until we break the silence, we're going to continue to feed these animals that destroy our innocence. I was so broken. This man brutally raped me. He brutally took my little body, 9 years old, and destroyed it. I had to have surgery because he raped me so brutally that my right ovary got twisted in my fallopian tubes. And I ended up with a scar that I carry to this day.
What happened to that man?
Nothing. My father went to jail one night. But guess what happened to my father? He lost everyone. He had 5 kids, he lost them all. That night. And the man went to jail 3 months. And they wanted me to testify, and I couldn't. And they wanted me to go and see this man after what he did, and I couldn't, so they let him go.
When you became an adult, did you seek out that man?
Never. I actually, when I went to film the documentary in the Dominican Republic in 2019, I think it was, before the pandemic, I called my cousin and I said, I want you to tell me if he's still alive. Because the idea was that we were going to pass by the house where he took me as part of the documentary. And they told me that he was still alive. He was 80-something. And that man probably did this to so many other children because he didn't go to jail. So the destruction that this man did, it wasn't only physical. That one got repaired. The one that did not get repaired and destroyed me and followed me for decades was the stolen, the ability, and it's still. I lost a child because from that moment on, the world became a dark place for me. I had no feelings.
Would it still be worthwhile to pursue that man? And I mean, what do you say to him at this point if he's in his 80s? But would it be healing for you to find that man and tell him the consequences, or make him realize the consequences of what he did, even if he's in his 80s?
I forgave him. I forgave him when I forgave my father. So fast forward, I come to the United States. I came in here when I was 15. So I had to move out of the little town because I came from a very, very small town. And I couldn't live there because I was pitied by everyone. So I ended up coming to the United States. And later on, I ended up having a child. And when my son was about a year old, I get a call from my father's brother, my uncle, who said, I just want to tell you your dad is dying. Your dad is dying of a tumor in his brain. He's not able to speak. But his last wish, he wrote, was if I could forgive him. He wanted my forgiveness.
Well, I think it's important to talk about forgiveness because there's a whole debate about what is forgiveness. Does forgiveness mean absolving the person of what they did? Does it mean a mild reaction to what they did? Or do you forgive and yet not forget? Forgiveness is very complicated, especially when it comes to sexual abuse, because you've been violated. I mean, your self has been stolen. So how do you reconcile that in the state of forgiveness? I mean, I'm not saying that forgiveness is something bad, but let's talk about forgiveness in the healing process.
Well, I can tell you that when I said to my father, I told my uncle, I said, tell him he can go in peace. And I do forgive him. It wasn't a quick, I forgive him, go in peace. It was, my God, really? How do I do this? Like, if I'm going to let this man go to you, then I have to really forgive from the heart. I have to let it go. The biggest gift that my father gave me was asking me for my forgiveness. My father got the forgiveness, and a few minutes later, he took his last breath, and he went to the Lord.
Someone once said that you forgive not so much for the person who wounded you, but you forgive so that you heal yourself. And
I'm living proof.
And maybe that's the essence of forgiveness. But speaking of forgiveness in the spiritual sense, because I think it's important for people who are out there listening, who have been victims of sexual abuse, is where do you start? Now, there are young girls, young boys out there who are undocumented and who are afraid to come forward because they're afraid that to talk about it or to report it means deportation, which it does not. There are also young people saying, who do I tell? Do I tell my teacher? Do I tell my priest? Do I tell my aunt? Do I tell my neighbor? What's the first step?
I can tell you that going to the person that you feel connected to, there has to be someone that you're connected to. But if there isn't, because unfortunately we live in a world with a lot of people that have suffered a lot of trauma, and they're doing the unthinkable. And that's one of the things that trauma can, Oprah Winfrey just came out with a book that says, What Happened to You? And I love that book because the psychologist that did it with Oprah Winfrey, he says, they go deep into, we are born good. What happened to someone that is doing the unthinkable? We have to look back at the trauma that they went through. So the children going to school, that's why I keep going back to the school, because if you think about it, where do the kids spend most of the time? It's either home or the school, or other organizations, other, camps or organizations where the children go to. Helping them have the structure where they can get support from different organizations is key. for them to be able to stop. We have to create a trauma-informed system, which doesn't exist. Even Oprah Winfrey in the book, she talks about how trauma is something that we don't talk about it. I can tell you, if you're out there and you are someone that this is happening to, yo digo no más, I say no more, you can go into our website, yo digo no más, and Ruth will put the link on the Facebook Live after. You can go there and send us a message. We will direct you to the place where you can get support. We work with different organizations. Eventually, we'll have our own healing center. We'll have our own place where you can come to. But for now, I can tell you that you let us know. Where are you? What do you need? What is your story? And even those that are listening that actually are ready to break the silence, I'd encourage you to come to my show. Yo digo no más. You can go on YouTube and see the incredible interviews and the power from breaking the silence. I'm obsessed with books, so I would always recommend. I have tons of books. I have an obsession with books. So this book that's called it's called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's very focused on sexual abuse of children. And he says it is by far one of the most horrific trauma that a person can go through. Sexual abuse in so many levels. And he says you are at war with yourself until you break the silence.
It manifests in many ways. I mean, there's it's more than a theory, but a lot of women who tend to be overweight.
Yes.
It's not overweight because they're undisciplined. They're overweight because of sexual abuse. Because the girth, the size that you become is basically a way of protecting your body.
Yes.
It's a way of protecting your body. A lot of women and men who don't like someone to touch them, that comes from sexual abuse. Because you equate being touched with a bad touch. You equate being touched with abuse. And that's something that needs to be worked through a therapist. It's not something that you can really do on your own. It's something that requires counseling. So as Maria says, you can break the cycle. Because if the cycle isn't broken, it manifests for generations to come. It manifests in the way you deal with your own children. It manifests in your health, your physical health, your psychological health. It manifests in the way you look at life and who you can trust.
It's a trauma like this. I look at life in 5 pillars. And the pillar of your body, your soul, the pillar of your family, spiritual pillar, financial pillar, and joy. To me, that sums life, right? If you think about it. If you can have harmony in those pillars, it's great. So when you are a child that is sexually abused and you lost your innocence, those pillars got crushed. As it is, without drama, and trauma, those pillars are difficult to have a harmony. So imagine someone like me. Boy, in this book, I share.
And I want to show that to the camera so that people will. You can.
Yeah. In this book, I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I share the ugly that most people won't share. Because at some point in my life, after doing so much work on myself, I stopped judging myself. I have learned to love me, the person that I am today, the person that has worked so hard to do the right thing for me and for my family and for the rest of the people that are in my life. This book, Univision actually interviewed me in Telemundo, and they call it a life guide. Because I didn't just wanted to tell you the story, because I'm somebody very focused on change, on action, on going from victim to creator, because I've done it. And the irony is, you can come to me and you can say, Maria, but but I was so poor, and I am so poor, and I have no money, and all of these excuses that we can build, and they're good excuses, because we can, as someone that have gone through so much trauma, and many of you I know have, the excuses are easy to come around.
Sure.
Very easy.
Because you don't have to deal with the pain. It's hard to deal with the pain. And as Maria said before we started this interview, that every time she tells her story, she's re-traumatized. But if she tells her story 100 times, by the time she gets to the 99th time, it's less painful than it would have been had she started at the first time, than the pain she experienced in the second time. And it's not easy. But the only way to get out of the fire sometimes is you have to walk through the fire.
Yeah.
That's just how it is to begin your journey back to the wonderful, fantastic, God-given person that you are meant to be. Now, I have a question. How do you get past the situation where a child normalizes the abuse? Because many times an abuser will say, I'm doing this because I love you. And we all want to be loved. That's fundamental. So in order to get that love, you're going to submit to the abuser and then basically become codependent, because that abuser is saying, because I love you. So how do you get through that?
See, programs like this, we are talking about this. It's through talking about that this is not normal. And since it's a silent pandemic, so we don't talk about it. So a child might not understand. Most of the time, they don't know what is happening.
Exactly.
They don't know. So, and for me, one of the things that I want to bring back to the school is that the conversation, education of your body, of sexuality, according to the different ages. My niece happens to be someone that is a doctor in psychology that specializes in trauma for children and adolescents. And we actually, in the Yo Digo No Más social movement, we are coming out with a workbook. In this workbook, and to me, it's this month that we are finalizing the book, which is Mental Health Month. And in honor of that, we want to finalize it for this. We've been working on this for about 1.5 years. This book talks to different children in different ways about sex. And you think sex, I'm not talking about intercourse. It's your sexuality, your body. It's teaching the children that, look, since they're 4 or since they can speak, this is you're the king and the queen of your body. Nobody touches your breast, nobody touches your vagina, nobody touches your penis. We start giving it names, and by giving it weird names, we're making it like it's a secret. You can't talk about the penis. You can't talk about the vagina. So we need to start creating the conversation. We need to bring education. We need to educate the parents. We need to educate the kids. This is a transgenerational issue. So I'm not telling you I have all the answers. I have the beginning of this. For me, this is my life mission. So God, hopefully, I tell my daughter, don't worry, nothing's going to happen to me, because God, I'm his instrument, and I do believe, for those of you that believe in God, and if you don't believe in God, I believe in divine intervention. So this divine intervention was given to me. And I will, until the day I die, will continue making an impact, and a bigger impact. And again, look, I'm here. All the people are out there. They're listening. The conversation's starting. So this is the way we're going to do it. There's a tremendous amount of work to be done. But breaking the silence, educating. starting to get help for a lot of the people, but the help is not available to many of them.
That's the problem.
I mean, psychological help, mental health is a serious issue. It is unavailable, and what's available to the underserved community, that unfortunately, that's the community that gets the highest percentage of sexual abuse, is unavailable to them. So I would say, because I talk to parents, I do a lot of public speaking, and I talk to parents. I was talking to a group of parents in Colombia, and they're parents that are very, very poor. They have a telephone that they have access to the internet, and they were able to Zoom with me, and I was saying to them, the internet has tremendous access to a lot of great stuff.
Yes.
It obviously has a lot of bad stuff as well. But there's so much in YouTube that, and that's one of the things that I like to do, even in Yo Digo Nomás, or my personal page, mariatrusa.org. I like to give access to stuff that is free. There are so many books out there that you can actually download for free.
And I think that going forward, since Yonkers Voice reaches out to so many people, it has thousands and thousands of followers, there'll be more information posted on Yonkers Voice about where you can go locally, who you can call, if you feel threatened, if you've been violated, who you can call locally to get the help that you need.
Yeah.
To get the help that you need. And I think I can't say that we've covered it. I can't say that we're done, because we are not done.
This is just the beginning.
This is just the beginning. But we are blessed with having Maria Trusa. We are blessed with Maria Trusa's strength to discuss what happened to her as a 9-year-old, how her spirit, her body was taken away from her. Her body was violated. But you're looking at a woman who was able to triumph over all of this, who's written a book, and who's standing up for you. You have her website, you have her information. Take advantage of it, please, for yourself, for your children, for your future generation, and tune in to Yonkers Voice for more information regarding this subject. If you have a question, do not hesitate to come forward, because it is important. It is your life. You decide today that you want it to stop. You decide today that you are going to reach out for help. This is Yonkers Voice coming to you live, and thank you, Maria, and thank you so much for watching.
Thank you all for giving me your time.